This is How Do I Do This? The show for anyone asking, is it just me or is this a lot? Hi, welcome to How Do I Do This with Ryan. We are going there today, the place where faith starts to feel foggy, where you have more questions than answers. In this episode, I'm going to refer to God because that is my belief system. But whether you refer to God as Mother Earth, universe, spirit, or nothing, you are welcome here. So substitute whatever language works for your belief system because this message is one that I know you want to hear. If you've listened to some of the other episodes, you know that I was raised in a very, very strict Southern Baptist church. I didn't just memorize Bible verses. My mama made me memorize Bible passages because if it wasn't written in my brain, it definitely could not be written in my heart. Growing up, I was exposed to a God that I thought was angry at me, angry at the world, and at any moment in time, the demons from hell were probably going to drag me away. In fact, I remember a time as a preteen where we saw a play where some of my friends were actors in the play and they were portrayed being dragged off to hell, and it was horrifying. Fast forward in junior high and high school, the good Christian boys and girls didn't act that way. They didn't act Christ-like at school. They were bullying, they were sexually harassing each other, and those purity promises, they were forgotten on the Alabama peanut fields. And so I had a hard time with religion, and I struggled for many, many years. For me, I found the Episcopal Church. It made sense because I saw women who were leaders. I found a place that was welcoming. I also found a place that said to me, Ryan, we don't want you to check your intellect at the door or your brain. We want you to come with your questions because it's part of your journey and it's part of ours too. So today, I'm so happy to have my very good friend, Reverend Katie Bradshaw. She is Rector of Emmanuel Episcopal Church in Athens, Georgia. Katie and I go way, way back, even though we only met each other in our mid-20s, but we grew up in the towns really close to each other. We also went to undergrad with each other, but we were not friends. And then we met in law school. And you're like, wait, I thought she's a priest. She is. She's a lot smarter than I am. She quit practicing law. And she went and got a Master of Divinity from the School of Theology at Sewanee. And she is here today to help us answer questions about faith. She is a wonderful person. She is a good human. And I know she doesn't throw around scriptures and expect them to be Band-Aids. And so that's why I wanted her to talk with us here. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we're having hot tea. And the reason is my grandma Mabel, before it was in the Urban Dictionary, was spilling the tea with all the church ladies around this dining room table.
Okay.
This is her dining room table. And also teaching me lessons about life over hot tea. And so she had to be a part of this program and this show because I don't think you can have a good conversation if you don't have hot tea.
Was this her tea set?
It was.
That's great.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump into it.
Okay.
How do you think organized religion helps or sometimes doesn't or could hurt somebody if they're in a grief space?
Well, listening to you talk, this is so difficult because in the last few weeks, months, we have so many new people coming to our church. I have no idea why, but they're coming. And so I'm trying to have coffee or tea or breakfast or lunch with them. Mm-hmm. And, oh gosh, so many church hurt people. I did not grow up in the tradition that you did. And so it's just really terrified people. Mm-hmm. And I've just had to listen. And so that hurts no matter where you are and what space you're in. But as organized religion really deals with grief, I think about COVID. Mm-hmm. And in 2020, I had a parishioner in Mississippi, I just moved here, who died of cancer. And her son lived in Georgia, she lived in Mississippi, and he didn't want a funeral. He didn't want a memorial service. He didn't want any sort of visitation or anything like that. He just packed up and they left. And was such a void for her friends, even for me, because I was there the night she found out she had pancreatic cancer. It was devastating.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. And so to have no ability to mark a life, to celebrate a life, to say she was here, she lived, leaves this emptiness for people. And that's when I realized what church, I'm going to say church rather than organized religion.
That's fine.
Gives us the tools to do.
Yeah.
When done well. Gives us the liturgy to mark those lives, to help, the grieving process begin, I guess. And I didn't realize how important it was until it didn't happen for somebody that I cared about. And I think about her all the time.
Yeah.
I painted her.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, I've got to mark this, that this life impacted me.
Well, in the church, in the Episcopal Church, we mark time,
all
year. And then we start back over.
Right. And that's so much a part of the rhythm of life. So to not have that, the absence sometimes makes you realize how important things are, right? And so the other thing I think, we can provide spaces. So we just started a grief group last week in our church.
Why's it got to be all the way in Athens, Katie?
I know. And that's the really interesting thing, is that people from the whole community are coming.
That's awesome.
Because there aren't a lot of spaces for that. And so church can provide that. And so, I know it can hurt, but it also gives us the tools in the middle of the process.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's what I try to uphold. I'm a priest, so I'm for
I'm
for it, right?
Yeah. So share, and I know a little bit about this, but you were practicing law, and you were a great lawyer, and then you said, okay, I think I'm going to try something else. Tell people what that evolution looked like for you, because to a certain degree, career loss, big life changes, that's grief moments too, right?
Yeah, for sure. I actually felt the call to ministry when we were at Birmingham-Southern.
Yeah.
And everyone going to seminary, they were good. They were really good and pious, and they never went out, and they never had a good time. And
we had a good time.
They never sang with a band.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember one day in the CAF. Remember the CAF?
Yep.
There was a Lay's potato chip guy there. He giving out Lay's, okay, just we've got new flavors or whatever. Yeah. And he kept looking at me, and he said, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No, I don't." And he said, I play the drums in that band you sing with sometimes." So yeah, I love to party.
Yeah,
good time. Yeah. And I just thought,
we've partied a lot.
I will never. I can't be that person. I'm not going to change who I am. And it took 10 years. I ran from this for 10 years. Went to law school, practiced law. I was a public defender as my last, which was ministry in and of itself.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I had a blog throughout all of this time. And like back in the early 2000s, everybody had a blog. I don't know if you remember that. And my grandmother's church used it as their Sunday school, and I didn't know.
Really?
Yeah, she didn't know because she was blind by that point, so she never made it to Sunday school. And so one day, out of the blue, I got a letter in the mail from her minister. And I'd met him once, and he said, I've been in the ministry 60 years, and I've never thought someone was so called to this, and I really want to help you. Yeah, I mean, it's been all these crazy things happen. So yeah, it took 10 years to finally say yes. Yeah. And I had to realize that I could still be who I am, that I didn't have to pretend to be someone else, and that would be okay.
Yeah. I think, that's something I think we all wrestle with, like, who am I? What is this? I mean, even me doing this podcast and speaking up at work to say, so I know I'm the attorney, but I kind of have this idea, and seeing it through, because, I mean, my heart has been to help and inspire women. And I certainly didn't think it looked like making a podcast. That was the catalyst, was my mom passing. But I think sometimes when we have like those strong urges and nudges, we have to just
follow them.
Follow them through.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I've had some other guests who I've talked with, and they say, well, I'm spiritual, not religious. And you shared about how different people are now coming to your church because you're all setting up a grief thing. How do you relate to those people? And what would you say to somebody who is maybe has been hurt by religion to make them feel comfortable and that they can come as who they are?
Yeah. Well, so I think the thing about spiritual, when people say I'm spiritual but not religious, let me start there. I think in today's world, people say spiritual as like new age ideas or mystics, or I like God, but I don't want to go to church.
Right.
And for me, saying I'm spiritual, or the word spirituality, is really about our interior life, or what some people call the soul, or just your inner life, right? I don't know how else best to describe that. And I've been studying the desert mothers and fathers of the 3rd and 4th century, which I know sounds super boring, but I think that they really have a lot to teach us about today's world. And so they were living in a time where the church was fighting. I mean, the church is always fighting. But, so the church was fighting over whether Jesus was human and divine, and if he was, like, how did that work out? And they were also fighting about what books of the Bible would be in the New
canon.
Testament canon.
Yeah, I actually wrote a research paper in high school about how the New Testament became the New Testament because I was just curious.
Yeah. I mean, it took 400 years. Yeah. And they fought a lot about it.
They did. And there was a lot of revisions and a lot of rewriting and a lot of going through human hands. Yep.
And a lot got left out.
Yep, sure did.
So these mothers and fathers are just, they're outdone with the church. They're sick of the church fighting. So they're like, we're going
not unlike a lot of us nowadays.
Exactly.
With politics.
Exactly. And that's the people I think about that are coming to the church that say, I've been hurt by the church, or I'm not really into the organized part of it. But they go to the desert, and they think, I'm going to go to the desert, I'm going to be alone, I'm going to have solitude, and I'm going to really connect with the divine. But then they realize there's still a lot of thoughts in their heads, and it doesn't exactly work like that. And they kind of live together in groupings, and then they realize we need each other. We actually need each other to better connect to the divine. And so in some ways, what I'm trying to do is honor the fact that people have been hurt by the church, but we all have this interior life I think we're trying to cultivate, and that's the spirituality. And so what I try to do is help them realize we actually need each other to help you find whatever it is that you're seeking. I think we all have a seeking in us. Yeah. And so, but not over their head, like not hitting them over the head with it. But
we're not showing them plays where friends are getting dragged off to hell.
Right. Actually, I'll generally say, wait, why don't you just come to a party first? Yeah. Because we have a lot of parties. We just had a hoedown, and we had a miniature pony, and I hired somebody to
Was his name Little Sebastian?
No, but had a hat, and like the old people loved it.
That's awesome.
We had a woman who taught line dancing. It was pretty good. So I always say, come to the party first. To just help them see these are normal people.
And Jesus' first miracle was turning wine at a party. Exactly. So why shouldn't we do the same thing, right?
So that's how I try to bring them in to realize sort of the greater truth of that cultivating of that inner life, which is what I think people are seeking when they say that. Yeah. So just being completely real, I mean, you know my heart and how I grew up, and you know, I've always believed in God, just like I believe in gravity. Can't see it, don't know it's, you know, don't really understand how it works, but I know I'm not floating up in the air. But when my mom passed, I had several like really quiet moments where I was like, what if we got it all wrong? What if this is it? And then I was like, wait,
am I going to hell because I'm thinking that? And then there was like guilt on top of grief. And so am I normal, Katie?
Yeah.
No, I mean, we know I'm not, but do you think that's a normal response? And what, if I had called you in that moment, what would you have said to me?
I say that's a very real thing. Sometimes my parents live on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
And so out there's no lights, there's no ambient light. And when I'm there, the last time I was there, I just was looking at the stars and I thought, I'm just this like little thing on this big rock floating through space.
It's wild.
and sometimes when I think like that, I think, what is God real? You know, what is this all real? I think that's part of it. There's a theologian named Paul Tillich. Mm-hmm. Actually, Martin Luther King Jr. wrote his dissertation on Tillich. Okay.
Oh, okay.
He's a big theologian. And Tillich said that doubt isn't the opposite of faith, but doubt's like a part of the faith. Mm. And so for me, I think faith is this, not a straight line. It's like a curve. Sometimes we're on again, off again kind of thing. And I've been taking a class this summer on Rilke, the poet. Mm-hmm. In the South, we say Rilke, but I've learned now it's Rilke. So I'm trying to be all professional. Rilke. Anyway, so
we don't have to do professional.
Well, so Rilke said you have to live the questions. Mm. And so it made me think. A number of years ago in Mississippi, I had this parishioner. He was in his 90s. He was very dapper. Mm-hmm. And he had been married and grew up in the church, got a divorce, stopped going to church. He was getting remarried in his 50s. And he told me that his fiance wanted him to go back to church. Mm-hmm. And so he goes to church and he tells the priest, look, I have way too many questions and way too many doubts to be here. And the priest was like, well, where else would you go with that? Mm. And that just stuck with me.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, back to sort of the communal of it, when we do have those doubts, it's the people in the pews that are praying for us when we can't.
Yeah.
And I just think that's part of life for all of us.
Yeah, I think for me especially, because, you know, faith and I think and grief are so similar in the fact that there's ups and downs and there's waves, and I have good days and I have bad days and I have terrific days, and then I have days where I'm like, shit, I can't get out of bed. I mean, you know, like it's just, but for having my son and wanting to be a good mom, I could lay in that bed and rock for 3 days straight because I am just sad.
Yeah, I think that's life. I mean, I think that's.
And the things that have pulled me out have been that random text. They don't know what's going on, but somebody just say, hey, I'm thinking about you. Yeah. Like you came across my mind today, that connection, that to say, okay, this feels really lonely and nobody understands what it was like to be my mom's first child, her rainbow baby, like I do. You know, because I have my dad and I have my siblings, but I was her first child. Yeah. Nobody has that but me, right? And so it feels very lonely because that's gone. But it's that connection, I think, that has really helped me. And I do have, you know, a church home, and that has helped me. And so I think, to your point, if people lean into it, that it can be very, very, very healing.
I always tell people, if somebody's on your mind, there's a reason, like reach out to them.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. Mm. So how do you personally help people bridge the gap? Because as attorneys, you're still an attorney.
I know.
You know, the logic part with the emotional part. Because sometimes I know with me, I mean, and I think this would be true even for non-attorneys. I don't want to speak for people who are not me, but from my experience, it's been hard, like bridging that gap between the logic of she's not here and the emotion of there are days she feels very here, but she's not. Like, how do you sort of bridge that gap?
Yeah.
Or can you? Or do you?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Or try.
yeah. I think it begins with language. So what we name things, how we talk about things matters. When I was training to be a priest, and I've done some work with a grief center in Jackson, with children's grief center. One of the things you learn is that children are so literal, they're so concrete. And so you can't use things like she's passed away.
That's so good to hear, because I've used that phrase with my son, and maybe there's some better language I can use.
Yeah, so kids are too literal for that, right? So passed away, she's passed, we've lost her, is way too ambiguous for them, right? So if you've lost somebody, then maybe you can find them. If they passed by, maybe we can go after them.
Oh, okay.
So we have to use words like death and dying and died, which is really difficult. Whew. I know, it's hard. It's hard. My mother and I fight about this, actually. But those kind of concrete words are so much better for children. Because they don't, that helps with the rationale of that. Otherwise, it's sort of like, well, we could track them down.
Right. Lost things can be found.
Yeah. And so I think the same is true for adults. Because we live in such a death-denying society. I mean, go in the bookstore, right? And you will see books on how to exercise your way out of sickness. Or this morning on the way over here, I was listening to the radio, some news show about this man has an exercise and diet program to reverse Alzheimer's. And doctors are like, yeah, well, that doesn't work. But it's just part of that death denying. We think we can exercise or diet or guru our way out of it. But sickness and death and suffering come to all of us. Like, we don't get out of this alive. But our society wants to deny it. And a few weeks ago, I had a funeral. Okay. So at our church, we have a columbarium where you can inter ashes. But there's a cemetery in town. And we have a common plot where we also bury ashes, but you pour them in the ground there. It's real old. And so I had a funeral. And this is the first time that this particular funeral director had ever been to our cemetery plot. We just don't use it that often. So we get out there, and there's this beautiful fake grass and a table. And I said, where's the hole? And he said, oh, it's under the grass, under the table. I said, we're going to pour these ashes in that hole during the middle of the service. And he said, you're gonna pour the ashes in front of the family? And I'm like, yeah, someone has died, and this is what we do. And then we're going to ask him to put dirt on top of it to help bury them as like a thank you, or I love you, or I don't know, well done, good and faithful servant. And he was freaking out. And so we got to move the table.
And he's a funeral director.
He's a funeral director. We got to move the table. We got to move the grass. And and that just sort of dawned on me in that moment of, we really live in a death-denying society, and so much of our liturgy is helping people connect to the reality of what's happened. And I think we have to change our language in order to really help people.
Well, no pun intended, you're speaking my language, being a transactional attorney. I love words, but even with myself, it's hard for me to say, my mom has died. I mean, even now.
I know. I mean, it's not... this is why my mother and I fight about this a lot.
Enjoy those fights.
Well, we've had a lot of family die in the last 5 years, and she's like, we can't, that's too harsh. And I said, but Mother, that's what's happened. And so if we don't acknowledge it, we'll never truly live into it. And
so for a parent, I'm thinking especially about a mom like me who has not used that language with their child. How do I go about fixing it and doing better for him?
Just pay attention to what you're saying.
I haven't messed him up, have I?
No. Okay. No, gosh, no. No, but you can talk about he's living the reality. You're just helping him.
Yeah. Okay, so we were talking about solitude and being alone and how that can be comforting. And my personal practice is, and this has been going on for years, even back when we were in law school together, I get up early in the morning, I have some quiet time. I write a journal where I write out my prayers and my gratitude to God, and we go back and forth, and that is so helpful to me. And then depending on the day, because it's a morning routine and I don't want it to be so strict, sometimes I turn to scripture, sometimes I don't. But sometimes the scripture that lands is not the thing I need. It feels like salt in a wound. What would you say to somebody who has never really looked into scripture before, but maybe they're considering this could be a helpful tool? Do you have some books or some resources you would recommend for somebody new to reading scripture? Because I think for me, that's easy because it's been a part of my life, my entire life, all 45 years. But for somebody who is now thinking, I want to look into this, where would you tell them to start?
Well, I think people who are grieving, I usually say start with the Psalms.
Okay.
Because the Psalms are prayer songs written by the Israelite Hebrew people over thousands of years. And it's only part of the Bible that's really human words to God.
So kind of like my journal.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of, they're prayers, but there are a lot of lament psalms. In our church, we read the Psalms every Sunday, and I think people's eyes glaze over, but they're just this great tool to help people pray, because they give us permission to be sad, to be angry, to be frustrated, and some of them turn to hope, but some of them don't. And we can't rush ourselves to hope sometimes, and it gives us permission not to do that. And so I think that's a great way to start. And I always tell people, if you're in grief, read the Psalms. You can be angry with God. They are. So many of them are, And as far as sort of studying the rest of Scripture, for me, Scripture should be studied as a whole. It's complex, so we could take parts of it and make it whatever we want, and people do, and I think
we see that a lot.
Right, that's, you go to Hobby Lobby, right?
Yeah,
and you're like,
get you a little
rest
plaque.
Of that verse.
Right, get you a little plaque with a good saying on it, and
live,
then all
laugh,
of
love.
Yeah, live, laugh, love.
So I, actually I needed a new coat hanger for the back of my door. For towels, and I got "This Is Us," and every morning I'm like, "This is us."
The towels.
I live alone.
Right,
so
right.
Right. No, but yeah. So Scripture has to be, for me, studied as a whole. So if I'm teaching a Bible study, I don't know, say Paul, or the first letter to the Corinthians, you have to read it from beginning to end, right? So then you learn, well, where was Corinth and what was happening in Corinth in Paul's day. In order to really begin to understand what's being said. And translation matters. So I told you I'm taking this class on Rilke, and this past Sunday, he wrote in German. And it's not always easy to translate from German to English, so we read the same poem for 4 different translations.
Oh, wow.
And the same's true for the Bible. That's why some of the translations will have every word it could possibly be. And I think that matters when you're studying Scripture. But people who are grieving aren't really in the headspace to go hold the Bible and a commentary and translation. So that's why I always say, just start with the Psalms. Those are just words to God, and that's an easy place to begin.
I love that, because especially, I've been looking at other tools and what has worked for me in the past and what is helpful. And to your point, I also love Proverbs. And so Psalms and Proverbs for me has been the parts that have been digestible. And so that's a good place to start. So if I'm understanding you correctly, if you're in grief, whether that's from a death or a big life change or whatever, don't go making over your whole life. Don't quit smoking. Don't go on a diet, and don't say I'm reading scripture every day.
Don't make any huge life changes.
Don't get bangs.
Yeah. Oh, definitely don't get bangs.
All right.
I don't know if you remember this, but in law school, one of our friends, we had a night class on real estate. I'm pretty sure you were there. And she said, I'm going to go get bangs after this. And I said,
no.
Don't do it. But she did. And
it was terrible.
20 years later, she's like, remember when I got bangs? And I was like, remember when I told you not to get the bangs? So,
yeah, you were always our voice of reason. Although you were sometimes pouring the shots. But we won't talk about that. So if someone is in a place that you probably have better language to describe this, but I would say a faith crisis, and they're like, I just don't know what to believe anymore. Mm-hmm. This horrible thing has happened, whether it's divorce, spouses run out on them. What do you think is a helpful place for them to start, and what message, if they could sit across from you, would you share with them?
I truly just sit with people in it. I can't help but think about 15 years ago, a family friend died of cancer, prostate cancer, way too young. Mm-hmm. And when I went off to seminary, one of his daughters, she didn't say it, but I think she was a little weirded out, like following Jesus and stuff now. And so we have to do a hospital chaplaincy. Mm-hmm. And I did it in Birmingham at UAB where she lived. And so we had lunch. And I remember her saying, I just need you to know I'm mad with God. I'm not sure I believe in God. And I just remember thinking, well, I get it.
Yeah. That's a human emotion.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing is just to sit with people in it. Mm-hmm. There's really not much you can say in that moment than just sit with them and say, it's okay to be in that place. Not try to convince them. You're not going to convince them of anything.
Yeah.
And I like to think maybe that's what God does with us too. It just sits with us.
Yeah. That idea of being held. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where I would start.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I know in some of the days right after my mom passed, I started getting very angry because people would say things, and they meant it so. I bet you can guess what I'm about to say. They meant it so kind, these sweet, because the service was held in Dothan, and a lot of people came to celebrate her life, and that was wonderful. And then slowly but surely in the receiving line, she's in a better place. And after I heard it about the fourth time, every time somebody said it in my brain, I was like, I know that, but I would like her here right now, please. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Please shut the fuck up.
This is not helpful.
It's not helpful. Those are not helpful, but the things I remember that felt so comforting was, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And hugs and somebody sitting in the silence with me.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, well, when my mother died, that also drives me crazy. It really, as part of our training too, never go to your...
Yeah.
Well, when this happened to me, that's never helpful for people either. Yeah. Just say, I'm sorry. I'm here.
That's it. I'm so sorry. I'm here. What are some other things that you can think of that you have heard people say that really were not helpful, that some of our listeners could just kind of tuck away in the back of their mind, so whenever they have a friend or a loved one or a coworker that you're like, hey, don't go there.
Say that.
Don't go there.
Don't say this was the plan.
Yeah. Don't
say, oh, they're with the angels, or God needed her more than we did.
Yeah.
Or never turn it to yourself. If I could just impart that through this microphone to people.
Yeah. Because everybody's experience
is completely different.
Different relationship. Even I find that to be true, and I have to recognize that when, I'm talking with my dad. Mm-hmm. I lost my mother, but he lost his spouse of almost 53 years.
completely different kinds of loss.
Yes. And we both love her tremendously. But in some ways, my grief is more complicated than his because he had a lot of life with her. Mm-hmm. And our story doesn't quite feel finished yet. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that's so wise to say, just listen to where they are. Mm-hmm. Totally.
And everybody has different relationships. I mean, I find even amongst siblings, people would have mm-hmm. different relationships with their parent. Mm-hmm. And their grief reaction is all completely different. So,
well, yeah. I mean, my brother and sister had a different set of parents than I did, because my brother specifically, he had the benefit of parents who had raised an infant already, and so their relationship is not going to be the same. And so I think what I've learned is that, you just have to really honor and respect where people are, even if you don't understand it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that's been the big thing for me. So I always like to leave people with some resources they can look for online, or some books that you find helpful that you would recommend, whether it's for them personally or a place they could go to online. I know that you mentioned the group that y'all are starting in Athens, but if somebody's not in Athens, Georgia, what are some online resources or some things they could look up to help plug them into a community to find that connection? Because what I heard in our conversation is, and I've experienced this, like, I think it's normal to want to isolate, but we need that connection, whether you find that in religion or a group mm-hmm. or friends or whatever. So what are some resources people could look to?
The first I have to plug is a book, because I'm a reader. Yeah. But
I am too.
Yeah, Kate Bowler. She's a professor at Duke. She had cancer and a young child, but she's written several books, but one's called Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to read it.
Yeah, so that's a great book to start with. And then, so in most states there are grief groups for children. So in Atlanta, it's called Kate's Club, mm-hmm. and they have different outlets all over the state. That's, if you have kids, mm-hmm. These places do great work. Mm-hmm. In Jackson, it's the McLean Fletcher Grief Center. Mm-hmm. There's one in Seattle that sort of spawned it all, called the Doogie Center, Dougie Center, but they changed their names. Mm-hmm. But you can look that up.
Okay.
A lot of churches have grief groups. Even if it's not your church, most people are open to that. I'm an Episcopalian, so I would plug an Episcopal church. I have to do that.
Well, yeah.
And
it might be beneficial to seek a denomination where maybe you don't know everybody.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
I could see how that could be helpful, that you could really bring more of your full self without worrying about you're going to see them in church the next Sunday mm-hmm. sitting down from the pew, where you could be maybe a little more raw.
Exactly. The other thing I would say is grief affects us physically, and we don't always realize that.
That was surprising to me.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And so an exercise group, take a dance class.
Yeah.
Do something.
Join a band.
Yeah, well, maybe join a band. I don't know. Anyway, something physical, a group physical activity. A runner's group. I told my mother, though, when I moved to Athens, there's so many runners groups, and I said, look, if I join a runner's group, I've hit rock bottom. Like, this is not going well. Come save me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's really helpful for people. Pickleball, whatever it is. Meet people that you're not always talking with, and of course, church.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I have to say that, right? I'm an Episcopal priest, but church is a great place to look for that. I'm trying to think of the people who aren't into church right now. That's okay. Other outlets. So
yeah, just finding a
art
place
class
where you can find connection. Mm-hmm. Love that. Okay, so we have every guest I ask the same 5 questions.
Okay.
I think I remember you loved Inside the Actor's Studio too with James Lipton.
Yeah, I haven't watched that in a while, but yes.
And you know how you asked the 10 questions at the end?
Yes.
Okay, I have my own version.
Okay.
Call it the Fabulous 5 when we're spilling tea.
Okay.
The last one's spicy. The other 4 are not as spicy.
Okay.
So what's a life lesson that your mama or your grandmama taught you that just has stayed with you and that you think about a lot?
Okay. But it's my dad.
That's fine. That's totally fine. Tell me.
And
it does not have to be G or PG.
Okay. So when I first went to, started working, I guess, in college, whatever. And I said, Dad, I'm not sure everybody respects me because I'm this young kid. And he said, don't ask anybody to do anything you wouldn't do yourself.
That is a good one.
And it's really stuck with me. Now that I'm the boss, it's really stuck with me.
Yeah. You got to pick up the trash if you see it laying there.
Exactly.
Yep. I love that. In your dark moments, because you were such a bright light, but everybody has them. Life's gotten loud. What is something that helps you besides caffeine and screaming in the car? I mean, maybe that is your go-to. I
don't know. Music for sure.
Yeah.
I have a huge record collection.
Yeah.
And
who are you loving right now?
Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors right now. I've also gone back to Jimmy Buffett this summer just because it's summer.
Yeah.
And I did a Jimmy Buffett themed funeral recently.
Really?
Yeah. And
what was that, your choice or by request of the person who had passed?
But yeah, the guy who died loved Jimmy Buffett, so everyone wore flip-flops and shorts, and it was great.
I love that they infused some joy, and I never would have thought to do anything like that, but yeah, that's awesome.
It was great. I tried my best to quote some Jimmy Buffett in my sermon.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's cool. What's the most sentimental thing on your nightstand or in your home that's just like super special?
So it's not on my nightstand, but it's in the dresser near my bed. And it's the hairbrush, the last hairbrush we used to brush my grandmother's hair when she was dying. And it still has some hair in it. And anyway, I keep that in there.
Yeah, I love that.
And also some cream that we used on her. But anyway, that's also super weird. But
No. I have the last little bit of my grandmother's perfume, the bottle. I snagged it. And it sits in my room across the way, and it's nearly about empty. But I have that, and I have her Bible, a couple of her Bibles, because she went through them, and and periodically we'll open up and see what she thought about certain things, and just see what resonates, and the little notes that she wrote, and that Southern penmanship that all of our grandmas learned, where you, there's a generation, they all write the same.
Yeah. My handwriting peaked in the 3rd grade, and my mother just couldn't handle it. So
yeah, same. So when you get to heaven, one unfiltered question, what are you asking God?
It's this hard question for a priest. It is, because all my theological training comes back, and I think, well, that's a dumb question, or this is a dumb question. Yeah. So I guess I would have to think about it as if I were a child and I didn't have any sort of, and I guess I would probably ask, why suffering? Why did we need suffering? I guess my other question would be, why call me to this ministry? but mainly suffering, yeah.
I don't pretend to speak for God, but I know why you were called.
No.
I know why you were called. Because
I do love what I do.
Yes, and that is obvious, and I know that you're amazing at what you do, and I know that your church is so lucky to have you.
Well, thank you. Most days.
And all days.
My dad came to visit, and he said, "Who let you be in charge around here?"
I'm not surprised. When I heard you were going to seminary, I was like, "Oh yeah, she's gonna be awesome. That's great. That's amazing." All right, so this is a spicy question.
Okay, spicy.
Spicy.
Okay.
ride or die swear word. Like you're done. It's been a crazy day, or you just hear something that's outlandish. What, as a priest?
Yeah.
I know you swear. You can't say that you don't. What word are you dropping?
So I have to tell you this. My great grandmother, all right, played the piano at her Methodist church, and she played by ear. Okay, and she had a lady that stood beside her who would hum the first line of the hymn, and then she would play. And she was a super faithful person, but her favorite word was shitty. And she would just say, well, that is just shitty, shitty, shitty. And so I find myself, that's my word.
I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for the tea.
Yeah, I'm so happy you could do that. So that's it for today. Remember, you can ache for who you were before everything fell apart and still become someone new. Grief and growth sit at the table beside each other, often passing notes when we're not looking. This tea, this time, this space, it's part of your healing, and it's part of mine too. You're right where you belong. You're not broken, you're just brewing. Follow along on Instagram at How Do I Do This Pod and on YouTube at How Do I Do This Pod. DM me on Instagram and tell me what kind of grief you're holding right now. Seriously, I'll read everyone and will probably be the person to respond back. Tell me what you have tried that you think might help me. I'm open to trying anything that's not illegal. Your story might find its way into one of our future episodes.